Janie, we are so excited to have you in Louisville, and I know that we've got to learn a little bit about you on your journey here. So we were hoping, as part of a way to highlight the great things that our clinicians and managers and leaders do, that we wanted to share your story with RehabCare and others, because I think it's unique and it's exciting. The actual event that you're here today to be part of is the wheelchair basketball. Tell me a little bit about that and what kinds of things you're going to be doing while you're here.
This week is the National Wheelchair Basketball Tournament. So it is one of the largest sporting events, and it will be our men's division. So we have two divisions in the men's division, and they're playing at the Expo Center. That'll be about 50 teams. And then we have a youth division. So we've got our 10-foot varsity division and our NIT, in that they're both about high school age. And then we have a prep division, which is the under 12 age group. So it's a lot of people here playing basketball.
You're an occupational therapist by background. Tell me how those two are connected and how your background and your professional skill has really been a part of your involvement with the Wheelchair Basketball League and other things which we'll talk about.
My first job was at McGee Rehab in Philadelphia. And my boss there was very involved in wheelchair sports, and she really promoted that amongst all of us. I'm new grad, so I'm excited about everything. And what she promoted was you're going to learn a lot, but also that it's a good way to give back to the community and the population that gives us our paycheck, in essence. So she was very involved in sports and got us involved in track and swimming. And so McGee had a track team, a swim team, and they had a basketball team. And I really enjoyed basketball. And growing up in Philadelphia, basketball is something we all did. So I started volunteering with the McGee's basketball program. And there's something called classification, and you classify people with disabilities so that you can get some parity on the court.
You're one of the top 10 classification coders in the world, and so that is an honor, and was really starting from understanding what that means for classifying the team that you began with.
You need to be a PT, an OT, or an MD to classify in the US, and we do manual muscle testing, we do range of motion, we do sitting balance testing, so that we can determine what muscle strengths people have, and that puts them in that classification. So that was my way to start. And you can't play if you're not classified. So in order for people to play, they need us. And they need PTs, OTs, MDs to take the time to volunteer and to use our skills that we're so good at and we do every day to allow people to do those vocational and those healthy kinds of things in their own lives. It's a way to take disability out of the sport and focus on the ability.
If we focused on our patients and what they can do, sometimes that builds more commitment and passion than the focus on what they can't do. I think there's probably a huge application that you've been able to have on your practice of occupational therapy and in also the education of your therapist. How has this experience really helped you to teach clinicians to be better clinicians in your everyday work?
As I said, my first director is the one that said sports is going to teach you a lot, because you're going to be out there and you're going to be talking to folks that are using chairs all the time, and they're going to tell you what actually works for you. So one of the first things I saw was slalom, which is an obstacle course. And I'm seeing folks in chairs popping curbs, going over rocks, going around ramps, doing all like popping ramps, and
which in your other world you might have been really warning them away from that, right?
Yes, and you're using, putting anti-tippers and seatbelts on,
yeah.
And here are your wheelchair gloves, and they're saying,
Right.
"Get away from me." So it really, and so then I talk to them and say, "Well, why'd you set your chair up this way? What are you doing here and there?" And they're more than willing to share what they did and why they did it, and it helped me learn more about center of gravity and balance and positioning and what works, and take that back to my practice and start really looking at those kinds of things and what works in the real world versus our textbook world.
Tell me how your work in this new arena has really shifted what you think about when someone comes in and talks about how they would be participating in their rehab.
There's this player down in Argentina that I saw, and it really tells the story for me. He had an accident, and he is a below knee amputee on one side, an above knee amputee on the other side, and a shoulder disarticulation on one side. So in essence, he has one functional extremity. And I saw him, I said, oh my gosh, if he came into the gym when I was having practice and said, I want to play basketball, I'd look at him and say, oh my gosh, you're kidding. Seriously. And this guy plays in Europe. He plays professionally. And that made me really like step back. And I think that tells the whole story of how his goal was to play basketball. Mine was looking at him saying, that's not the right sport. Let's find a different sport. His goal was not just to play a sport. It was to play basketball. And I think that really emphasizes having to stop and listen to what your patients are telling you and what's important to them. I know we all say we do it.
Right.
But I know I would have looked at another outlet for him and not have listened to what his real need was, and he does it. He's an amazing player, plays in Europe, plays professionally, and if I had, I'm not sure I would have given him that opportunity. So that's the story I remember when I see folks coming in and try not to set limits.
The story you've told is really inspiring, and it's so important that I think we see what we do in such a broad spectrum like you do. So thank you, Janie. We just are so appreciative of you spending time with us.
I'm very proud that Kindred is interested in what people do outside of their work.